In this video, we are going to compare the reasoning models of OpenAI, Gemini, and DeepSeek. And I'm not going to just ask them boring questions or logical questions. I'm going to give them a hard time and ask some really paradoxical questions which usually don't have a black and white answer. And the reason to do that is to figure out how the reasoning models is actually reasoning behind the scenes, what is their chain of thought, and how well they can articulate an answer that really isn't a logical one to be answered by any LLM. When LLMs were invented, they were really good at executing transformer models to give you the answers what you were looking for. And they were really good at text but really bad at math. I remember a lot of memes coming out that ChatGPT couldn't do mathematical calculations and that it presented wrong answers with the confidence of a PhD scholar. But that's no more the case because LLMs have graduated leaps and bounds in recent months. And the most interesting upgrade so far has been the reasoning models. It started with OpenAI's O1 models, which then became O1 Mini at a much lesser cost, but still it costs $200 a month to be able to access 10 queries for the reasoning model. Then came Gemini with their own reasoning model, and lastly came DeepSeek, which made all of it completely free with their reasoning models available on DeepSeek as well as Perplexity, with the Perplexity one hosted in US servers.
So here are all the three LLM models that I have set up for you in a split screen format so that we don't have to switch screens again and again. I'm using Perplexity here instead of DeepSeek's own website because that errors out a lot because of probably the crazy load that they are having from all over the world. And Perplexity has reasoning of R1 built in inside it, but with the difference of the hosted models they have are in the US. So the way they have done this is they have taken the open source models of R1 and hosted it on their own US servers. So the load on these servers are comparatively lower than DeepSeek's own servers, and also the latency would be much better. So don't get confused by Perplexity here. It's actually DeepSeek's R1 model that we are going to use. So let's just set things up here. So for Gemini, let's use their 2.0 flash thinking experimental model because this is the one that we have to use for multi-step reasoning. So we set this up. I have set up reasoning R1, the DeepSeek model in Perplexity. And for ChatGPT, I just have to turn on reason here. And for this, we will use the free tier of ChatGPT so that you can see how queries are performing without using the O1 model of ChatGPT, which costs $200 per month. So these are all free models that you can use right now inside your Gemini, DeepSeek, Perplexity, or ChatGPT. So let's start with some basic questions like the first question I would ask these would be of deductive reasoning, which is given a sequence of let's say 2, 4, 8, 16, what pattern do LLMs observe? And I would ask them to explain their thought process. So let's give them these questions. So I'll give that question here and I will give the same question here and I'll give the same question here. So let's start with Gemini first, then so let's wait for it and let's see what it's doing. So it's identifying the core task, analyzing the sequence. Oh, it already has done. So we didn't even get a chance to look at the thought process. Okay, so it's analyzed and it's looking for pattern and looking for formulas. So it has formed a hypothesis that the pattern seems to be multiplying each term by 2, and it's testing the hypothesis first and then trying to predict the next term, and it's doing a lot of review and refinement before it gives us an answer. So it tells us that thought process was the difference between these by 2. It's actually how I or any human would figure out what the pattern was. So choosing the most straightforward explanation, both multiplication by 2 and power of 2 are valid patterns. That's good because that's the first thing you will notice in this question, that it can be either multiplication of 2 or the power of 2. And it has predicted the next number to be 32 And in summary, the sequence is generated by repeatedly multiplying by 2 or by taking successive powers of 2. The next number following this pattern is 32. All right. So let's see what DeepSeek gives us. And it's going to analyze the stuff. Meanwhile, let's also see what ChatGPT comes up with. Okay, so DeepSeek didn't think that much, and that is why it's making waves, because it's using something called as MOE sequence, which it usually uses a lot less tokens to figure out uh, the reason behind any problem. And this is why Gemini used all of these tokens to figure out the answer to this question, while DeepSeek was able to do it within 3 sentences, right? So DeepSeek is confident that it is the power of 2, and the next number has to be 32. Meanwhile, we are still waiting for ChatGPT. Let's see how long it takes. Okay, it's identifying the pattern now. To explain, it is going with multiplication by 2. Okay, observation is multiplication, pattern is raising the power, and the answer is 32. Okay, but the difference between these answers is DeepSeek is really confident that this pattern is 2 to the power n, and both of these are giving me the answer that it can be multiplication by 2 or it can be the power of 2. Okay, that's fine. Let's move on. And the next question I would ask is something like a real life decision making scenario. So I'm going to give it a very humane problem. So I'm going to give it an option that you are offered 2 jobs, one with a higher salary but longer hours, and other one with lower salary but more work-life balance. Which job would you choose and why? So let's paste the same query inside, or maybe we have to get a new chat because this is a follow-up question. So let's refresh this and set up a new chat, and maybe set up a new chat altogether in all of these so that it doesn't get confused. All right. So this is pasted. I'll paste one here, I'll paste one here. And let's just enter all of these at once. So every model is thinking, and DeepSeek is looking for pros and cons, evaluating career choices, weighting job choices, 10 seconds. And this is Gemini is showing it's a classic dilemma. My choice between the two jobs fundamentally boils down to what I prioritize at this point in my life. Okay, so it's not saying which one is better or worse, but it's giving me the pros and cons of both the things. So job one, higher salary, longer hours. Pros is you have financial security, you have career advancement, you have skill development, and cons could be burnout, health risk, poor work-life balance, all of that. Lower salary would be improved. Pros would be improved mental and physical health, strong relationships, personal fulfillment and hobbies, reduced burnout risk, that's true, greater creativity and innovation. Cons would be lower financial compensations, slower career advancement, feeling underutilized, all of that. My decisions would be, what are my current financial needs and goals? Am I in a position where maximizing income is critical right now, or no? What stage of life am I in? The kind of work environment? What are my long-term career goals? How much lower is the lower salary, and how much longer are the longer hours? I like this. I like this thinking, because usually LLMs don't uh, give out this output, because lower can be relative and longer can also be relative depending upon what you consider lower is, right? Specific task and responsibilities in each job. So basically it gives me a very balanced answer, right? Let's go to R1, and the R1 says that arguments for higher salary are opportunities for advancement, financial stability. Arguments for lower salary are reduced stress, increased job, all of that. R1 is pretty straightforward, to be honest. It doesn't think that much, and usually that's a pro, but in this situation, that can be a con. And this is why I gave it a very real life situation in which there is no black and white answer, but there can be arguments in favor and in against of the problem that we are going to face. But before we jump to a conclusion, let's see what ChatGPT has. So ChatGPT has reasoned for 10 seconds and it almost says the same thing: work-life balance, career ambition, long-term health and well-being, financial needs and lifestyle, flexibility and negotiation. If I were to choose between general preference for long-term, I would lean towards a job offering better work-life balance. Okay, so we don't have an option that says which job offers better work-life balance, but let's see. While the immediate financial benefit of higher salary is attractive, having ample time for rest, personal pursuits, and relationships can contribute significantly to both my personal happiness. There is no one size fits all answer. Your decision should be guided by your current life stage, financial obligations, career goals. Okay, so ChatGPT is also giving me a pretty solid, balanced answer, but I think I would prefer Gemini's way to convey what it's thinking and to convince me about both pros and cons and to put a better picture overall of how things would fold out if I choose either from those. So in this situation, Gemini wins for me. ChatGPT is the second place, and R1 just fails to do a good job because it was not a logical question. So let's clean the slate now. Let's do a refresh of this and let's open a new chat. And my next question would be a very hypothetical reasoning question, because these kind of questions also are are what we call as thought experiments, and I would like to really see how LLMs tackle that, because tackling how many R's in a strawberry is kind of what is a usual litmus test that people do. But I want to go beyond that, and my next question would be, what if gravity were twice as strong as it is now? How would that affect everyday life on Earth? So that is my question. Let me paste it uh, everywhere else, inside this and inside this as well. So let's start with all of these, and I expect Gemini to win once more, but let's see how these are thinking and performing. So in my test, ChatGPT is the slowest of reasoning and doing stuff, but if the output is fine, doesn't matter. So let's see what Gemini has come up with. Let me just hide the thinking and let's see the answers. If gravity were twice as strong on Earth, it would fundamentally alter almost every aspect of daily life. So immediate physical sensational changes: weight, movement, strength, fatigue, balance, breathing. Impact on human biology: skeletal systems would undergo immense stress because the gravity would change. Muscular system would change, cardiovascular system would change, height might become shorter because of changes. Pregnancy would be significantly more challenging. Life expectancy would change. Environment changes: trees, plants, animals, buildings, bridges, atmosphere. Everyday life activities: sports, transportation, work and labor, agriculture, household. Societal and economical impacts: disruption, technological innovation, evolutionary impact long term. So it has basically summarized all possible things that one would think of if presented with this kind of question. Now let's go to R1. So R1 says effect on human body: height, skeletal, cardiovascular stress, compression, spinal compression, breathing difficulties, limits of tolerance, effects on environmental, collapse structure, vegetation, general effect. Okay, so R1 is pretty limited. It hasn't thought in that much depth as Gemini has. Let's see what ChatGPT has come up with. Heavier you feel walking, running, climbing, cardiovascular, muscular stress, daily activities, lifting, handling objects, building structural designs, transportational systems, land vehicles, would require more powerful engines. Okay, interesting. Aircraft in flight will generate lift to overcome gravity. Everyday commute would become difficult. Natural world animal adaptations, birds and insects, movement and predation, plant life, trees and plants, water behavior, technological redesigning technology, okay, social and lifestyle changes, economical impact, in summary, Earth's gravity. Okay, again, I would give ChatGPT the second place because the depth of reasoning that Gemini does with these kind of questions is just the best out of all three. And uh, DeepSeek is constantly just giving little to very little thought to whatever questions I'm putting inside it. I'm not sure if that's true for hypothetical thought experiments or if it's true for every single one, but DeepSeek is not really seeking deep in any of these questions. Let's do one more, and for this one, I would ask them a paradoxical question. Again, it's not a black and white question, but it compels people, and it should compel the LLM to think, and that's why we are here for. We want to test the reasoning abilities, not the logical uh, question answer ability in this video. So my next question would be, so I would ask, consider the liar paradox. This statement is false. How can one resolve the apparent contradiction? So if I say this statement is false, is it true or is it false? It sounds really stupid, but if you think about it, it can very quickly inflate into a thought experiment and a detailed discussion. So I would paste it here, I would paste it here, and this time I would start with ChatGPT, R1 in the middle, and I would enter Gemini last. Okay, so let's go with ChatGPT first. The lie paradox embodied by a sentence. Okay, rejecting the law of bivalence. Classical logic relies on the law of bivalence, which states that every position no sentence is formulated. This prevents a sentence in the object language from referring to its own truth. In other words, a sentence, this statement is false, becomes problematic only when it is allowed to self-reference its own truth value. It means it's just telling us how recursive feeling sentences might be a use case of this particular approach. The paradox is avoided because the sentence is not allowed to talk about its own truth. So it gives us all the possible theories, and it doesn't end with any conclusion. So we are still in the dark, and we don't have uh, uh, although this question doesn't have a black and white answer, but I don't think this inference is even enough for a dialogue. Okay, anyway, so let's come to the R1, the lie paradox, rejecting bivalence, fuzzy logic. Okay, so R1 also has come up with bivalence and Tarski's, and it has also come with some other uh, theories which are very similar to what ChatGPT has come up with. And it also says it's worth noting that there is no consensus on a single solution and many involve complex logic. So Ivan just gave up very quickly and didn't think a lot about what was being said. Let's jump to Gemini, and it says the liar paradox is a fascinating puzzle that has intrigued philosophers and logicians for centuries. I like the way it presents its thought process because uh, I think it's the most human sounding so far, you know, and it's the most friendly. By the way it's phrasing the sentences, I feel more interested to read all of these what it has written, versus Avan is just like it's a machine that spits out answers. I think it would be better suited for that, but for these kind of questions I would say Gemini is the one that wins for me. Okay, so and see how beautifully it has assumed both the cases, like it has assumed if the statement is true and it has assumed if the statement is false, and it has given us reasoning that we can assume both and we will be stuck in a loop, right? And then it has approached with the same tenacity that others have, but a lot of depth and a lot of logic and a lot of uh, explanation that we would like to have as somebody who is trying to get reasoning out of questions. I think this is the best answer out of all three. So the liar paradox is not much a contradiction to be broken, but an illuminating problem. It highlights the power and pitfall of self-reference, the limitation of binary true-false logic, and the complexities of language and its relationship to truth. So instead of seeing it as a problem to be eliminated, many see the liar paradox as a valuable tool for exploring the foundation of logic, language, and meaning. It continues to inspire the research and discussion in this field. Gemini is the best LLM right now for reasoning of at least questions that are not black and white, that are not really that much logical, and it's the closest to what a human being would think and speak like.
So that was it, and I think Gemini took the prize in this comparison, and ChatGPT became a close second, but DeepSeek, not really that much, at least my testing of these questions of reasoning. If you want me to test more questions or more type of questions with these LLM reasoning models, drop in your comments and leave a like, probably share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.